Hey, it's me, your boy Blue Gatsuga, and today I'll be doing my Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier analysis video. Hopefully, hopefully I won't procrastinate when it comes to uploading these because I already promised I was gonna do this video for someone. For someone who requested it. Anyways, enough. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's get right into this. First off, we're doing for hires. For hires, they are an interesting deck. Basically, the lower level monsters like to special summon the big boss monsters out of your hand. And the big boss monsters are pretty awesome. And I think, yeah, this deck only has one extra deck monster, and that is their Link 3, which is also pretty amazing. Anyways, first off, they have great boss monsters. And that's enough said about that. They have decent swarming abilities because you can surprisingly get out multiple for hires with these. At first, I thought this deck sucked. Granted, that was before we got. I think that was before we got Philo as well as some of their other support. But this deck can actually swarm really well, really fast. This deck can set up a couple of negates because Raphael as well as your Wiz are great at negating things. Plus, in this deck, you would tend to run back row that can actually stun and negate things as well. Since this deck can actually get tons and tons of advantage. Plus, the cool thing about Raphael is you don't really have to get for hire cards off of its effect. You can basically excavate any card and add it to your hand, which is pretty damn cool, in my opinion. And it can gain a ton of advantage because beat searches, seal adds back from graveyard, and I think Philo and something allow you to special summon, so that's pretty cool in itself. So you're gradually gaining advantage, so you can snowball over your opponent as well as just swarm the field and beat over them for game. This deck is very versatile because each of the monsters have their own effects that allow you to get out of certain situations. I actually really like Donpa because people usually don't see Donpa coming, plus they don't really think this deck has inherent spot removal. So Donpa's pretty good. They are consistent because you have 3 beat, you have your Rhoda, you have a whole bunch of other starters for the deck. And next, chain links. I like chain links. I like chain links shenanigans because it really makes it hard for your opponent to decide what they want to stop. Also, word of advice, if you summon Raphael off of Beat's effect, you should always make Beat Chainlink 1 and Raphael Chainlink 2 unless you don't want to lose Raphael to something like a Solemn Strike. Anyways, next, for the cons, it is weak to effect negation because if your opponent Veilers you, you kind of just lose. You kind of lose or it really sucks. It needs to go first most of the time because this deck, like I mentioned, likes to set up negates. Because basically when you're going first, you want to get as much advantage as you can off of your cards like Beat and Raphael. And then you also just want to set up soft negates so that way you'd be able to survive your opponent's turn, and then you can continue to build up more advantage on your turn and potentially game them. And lastly, you can't play through too many negations because that should be an obvious at this point. And I'd say that this deck is a tier 2.5. It is better than a lot of other tier 3 decks, and this deck can easily compete with rogue decks as well. So I'd say, yeah, this is a tier 2.5 deck, in my opinion. And then next we have Tribrigade. Yeah, the theme for this video is furries. I don't know why, but yeah. Anyways, Tribrigade are the newest archetype. You could argue that that's too soon for me to actually be making a video about Tribrigades, since, they can literally get support very soon. But anyways, let's get right into this. Tribrigade are a Link archetype, and they're pretty good. They have a great boss monster, that being Shrike, and it is typically the only Link monster in this deck worth going into, or at least in my opinion, because Shrike is an amazing boss monster for the deck. And Shrike is kind of like your win condition. It has good swarming abilities because you can actually get out tons of monsters without having to dedicate a normal summon, but not all the time. And this deck can actually form deadly chain links, because the good thing about the Link 2 and the Link 3, although as lackluster as they are, technically the Link 3 is pretty good, because it allows you to special summon and maintain presence and gain advantage. But the good thing about the Link 2 and the Link 3 is if you use them as link material so you can link summon Shrike, you can actually form a chain link and make Shrike your chain link 1, and then make your Lugal, or I forgot the name of the other link monster, chain link 2 or 3. 2, because you're not, yeah. You make it chain link 2, you can actually banish a card. Your opponent won't be able to Solemn Strike you. That's pretty fun. This deck is fairly consistent because you have multiple searchers. This deck has ample Beast, Beast Warrior, and Wing Beast support to work with, so that's cool. And it can be versatile depending on the build, because there's many different builds, since this deck is very open when it comes to those 3 typings. And for the cons, they need more Tribrigade monsters, most likely will change later. And this deck, depending on the build, locks you into Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast, because they have this spell card called Tribrigade Line, and it was only when I was actually dueling in tag duels with this deck that I realized how horrible that spell card is. Or at least how horrible it is when you want to mix it when you're in tag, or at least mixing it with some other thing, because this deck tends to lock you into those 3 typings. And Tribrigade Line really sucks, given the limited support you have. But I should have also said depending on the build, because depending on your build, you might not run Tribrigade Line anyways. And when facing, I think, this one Mystic Mind player, and no, it wasn't the Toon guy, it was a different guy. I faced this one Mystic Mind player, and yeah, the sucky thing is, once you run out of Tribrigades in deck, which isn't very hard to do given the limited amount of Tribrigade monsters you have in your main deck, you kind of run out of steam, or at least run out of a little bit of steam, and Line just becomes a dead card. Plus, because it's a searcher, you want to run it at 3, but at the same time, it is a bad card. And lastly, you can't play through too many negates. That's a given. So for now, I'm saying it's tier 3. It has the makings of being a tier 2 deck, if it gets more support. But I think tier 3 is actually an appropriate place to put it right now. But I guess I should put question mark here, because for a pure build, tier 3 would be more appropriate. But then you think about it, you have builds like Melfi, Tribrigade, as well as other kinds of competent builds, also like Zodiac Tribrigades. Those builds, I might actually argue, are tier 2 or tier 2.5. Anyways, tell me what you guys think about Tribrigades as well as for hires. Anyways, it's me, your boy Blue Gatsuga, and I'm out.